Good morning, everyone. Looks like everybody's situated. Thank you. Thank you for coming today, so many of you, and for staying. A little bit of information for the people that are at home. We are going to put out, I'm going to just announce 2 phone numbers. Well, I'll have to have my phone number. You can call in, and Sandy is going to answer it, and will let your questions be answered. If you have a question or a comment from home, you can call in. There's 2 numbers. One is mine. It is 717-575-6475. And Sue's is, I don't know what it is, Sue. 717-471, say it again. 3981. So if you have a question from home about any of the things we're talking about, then just please call one of those numbers, and then we will say it out loud and discuss it and answer it, hopefully. Okay, so we're calling the meeting to order right now. Let's start with a prayer, please. Gracious and loving God, we come before you this morning, grateful for this congregation and this church. We are grateful for all those showing interest in our future and the work that needs to be done. We know you are working through this church to be a positive presence in our community. We ask for your guidance to show us the plans you have and how we can best follow and serve you. We pray through the one who came and walked among us, your Son, Jesus. Amen. So before we move into the more difficult topics, I'd like to share some great news with you. If you remember, a couple months ago, we talked about and approved a new position for Director of Family Ministries. And I thought at the time it might be kind of challenging to find someone. But we have found someone that I believe is very much up to the task. And that is Lauren Weaver. Before COVID, Lauren was hired, if you remember, with a very limited scope, with very few hours, to head up the Sunday school and nursery with the children that we already had at the time. We didn't have many children for her to even work with. But even though their children, Lauren's and Kyle's children, are 1 or 2 of a very small group of children here, Lauren continues to have a heart for this church and what we can offer to the neighborhood. And that's not something you can pay somebody to have. It has to be real. People have to see that. And I see that in Lauren. And she starts today, and I'd like her to say a couple of words to you.
Thank you, Carol. Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to be back. I've missed you all. During COVID, my family and I, we just took a pause. We felt like we just needed to be together and figure out what was important, let the girls grow up. And now, sadly, they're big and they don't really need me that much anymore. So I have more time to commit to you all, to get to know, each and one of this family that we love so much. That's why we came back, because we love you all and we love this small, close-knit family. So I'm really looking forward to setting time to talk to each and every one of you now. And I'm going to do things a little differently this time. Instead of creating a bunch of programs all at once, I'm going to spend a few months really talking to you all, talking to the community, letting the community meet me personally, and see what they would like from us. Remind them that we're here and we're willing to really create programs that this neighborhood is looking for, that these businesses can be supported by. So I will be getting in touch with all of you and sending out my information again. So that way, if you have any ideas that you'd like to share with me, any talents that you have discovered over COVID while we were all home, I am excited to hear from you all and to kind of get things rolling. So thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. I can't tell you how excited I am. When we did the interview, she already had ideas, lots of good ideas, lots of enthusiasm, and you'll be hearing lots more about it, like she said. So that was the fun part. Yes. So the next thing is I'd like to everybody knows Steve, of course, but he is going to be sharing our budget and the information that we all need to hear and decide. Steve.
Good morning, everyone. Just as food for thought, I was thinking on the way in today that if we all were the same age as the temperature, we here would all be in our teens and everybody in Florida is in their 70s, so just keep that in mind. So, I did give out a handout which had the budget from 2021 side by side with the budget that we are currently proposing. The biggest numbers probably to look at as a starting point, if you look at our total income number on page 1, there's a total receipts line about 3/4 of the way down. It says $206,000 is our total receipts proposed for 2022. And then if you flip back to the last page and go to the bottom there's a total disbursements page, which shows $226,000 of total disbursements. So we're looking at a shortfall of $20,000. So that's our dilemma at this point. How do we move forward from there? There are so many individual items we could address today. Our original challenge budget, we had hoped to come back with income of $181,000 in envelope giving, but we only came in at the top line number of $146,000, which is $20,000 difference. Or I'm sorry, $35,600 difference. So we whittled that down. There were several steps we took. We had someone who decided to contribute $3,500 towards our copier lease to offset that budget item for 2022. I had decided that in lieu of taking money for bookkeeping and accounting services, I would give in-kind services for the year, which reduced it by another $3,600. We had put our insurance out for a different company to bid, and we were able to save close to $1,500 on that. So we've made some steps to reduce that big number down a little bit. One of the last items that is on the budget is $9,000 towards capital expenditures. One might assume at this point that if we needed capital expenditures that perhaps the Endowment Fund would be a place to look for that money, and so perhaps we could remove that from the budget line item and reduce the $20,000 by another $9,000, but that's certainly something that we have to put out to the congregation for approval. It's not something we as a committee can do, and it's kind of hard when you only have three or four people on the committee to make decisions for the entire congregation. So that's why we're coming here today, to sort of put forth all the numbers and let everybody sort of, as a group, decide what we want to do for the current year to get through this. I sort of mentioned the Endowment Fund. I just wanted to give you a summary of what has transpired in the Endowment Fund over the years. I went back to 2016, and the Endowment Fund had a balance of $553,000. And then it sort of went up, down, and moved mostly upward direction. But as of the end of December 2021, our balance was $752,000. So it went up almost $200,000 in that 6-year period since then, even though it's paid out somewhere around $90,000 in grants and expenditures. So it has increased, and we are thankful that that has happened, with the caveat that that's probably not sustainable at that level in light of what's going on in our economy these days. So, and I'm trying to think, is there... also in relation to that, keep in mind in 2021 we had a $31,000 $925 disbursement from the Endowment Fund to the church to offset the operating fund budget. That has already been included in the numbers for 2022 as well. So if we want to approve the budget numbers here, we would have to request close to $20,000 in additional funding from the Endowment Fund.
Steve,
yes.
And I don't think that includes the $15,000 for Lauren, right?
That is correct. Lauren's position has not even been included in any of these numbers. That's correct. I'm just looking over my notes to see if I talked about everything that we needed.
Well, let me just say something while you're looking over. While Steve did say that about the pledging, I do want to say that the pledges were excellent. We saw lots of people improve. We were really pleased with the amount that people pledged. So I just don't want that to look at all like we are disappointed. We aren't. There's not a lot of people, and they really stepped up, and we appreciate that, and we thank you for that.
That was one of the other things. I did do a schedule of stewardship over the years, and it has been very consistent. Up through 2019, we were at almost 174,000. And the biggest reason probably for that drop from 174 down to 146 is that we don't have as many congregational members. And that's the biggest reason. So, and therefore, the concept of bringing Lauren in or a reboost to our congregational vitality, as it were, we have to try to draw in more community members as part of this congregation. So,
And if you're ready, we can open it up to questions, unless you have more that you want.
The only other thing that I can offer in the salaries and administrative expenses, which constitutes the greatest share of our expenditures, there is an increase a little bit to the administrator position. Some of that time is going towards the preschool, but we do have plans to have the preschool reimburse us for some of those costs because the preschool does not have an administrator to run that program this year. They just have the teachers, and we're using the administrative staff to take care of all the bookkeeping issues related to that. So there's extra time on our budget to cover those costs at this point in time. And the other big cost, as far as an increase, is we've gone back to fully funding our music positions, as well as a funding for the part-time position for our technology person, because I think everybody realizes that we have a lot of people that can attend during COVID, and having the technology available to bring that message to our people who can't make it is certainly, I think, that we all stand behind. So, and at this point, we can put it out there for questions. Yes, Mike. Okay, so it's down about 20,000.
Let me just add one thing. Lauren, in addition to what I said about her job, she will also be overseeing the preschool. So she will be the director of preschool as well. Although, yes, Eileen is doing a lot of some of the things that the other director had done financially. Lauren will be doing that, not the financial part, but the other part.
Yes, Ann. The question...
No, there's no assumptions. this is why we're here today, to talk about this and see what we are going to do. Yeah, that we don't make any assumptions. Yeah, that's the best I can come up with. We don't, I mean, I don't know what else we would do, but we're not making that assumption. Let's just say that. Okay, so just raise your hand and Brian will bring you a mic.
Okay, as I would look at this, then we would be taking about $75,000 out of endowment. Oh, I don't know. Is it on there? Okay.
Put it closer to your mouth.
Okay. As I look at this, then we'd be taking about Okay. All right. As I look at it, we would be taking about $75,000 out of endowment for next year in order to make budget.
So in case anybody couldn't hear, she's making the question. We would be taking $75,000 out of the endowment fund to fund the budget as is proposed, plus to offset the position for the cost for adding Lauren into the budget. And that is a correct assumption.
So we also had a very generous donation that is going to be helping to offset, if I remember right.
Is going to be helping to offset the music in a way, the 2,000.
So Pastor Libby did mention that someone did make a donation towards music, of which some of that funding would be available towards the budget, yes. And I think she said the number is $2,000 that would be...
The entire donation was $5,000. And so depending upon the outcome of this meeting, there's going to be another committee that will be deciding how that will get distributed.
Okay.
But anybody is welcome to, donate something like that in somebody's memory.
The thing is, we've pared it down, and we've pared it down as much as we can. There just aren't a lot of people. The people that are here are generous. There just aren't enough of them. And so I don't have any other solutions. I'm not making any assumptions. We're here to talk about what we should do. We're fortunate that we do have a large endowment fund. We're very fortunate. When we were talking about this in consistory, and we were saying, well, what else could we do? We can think about, as the year goes on, maybe some ways to make some more money, but that's not, concrete as of this morning. And Libby said, well, there is another choice. We could go into hospice. Well, I don't think anybody really wants to do that, especially with $700,000 sitting in our account. But so I don't know. We're not here to tell you what to say. We're here to see what you think.
Yes,
Lauren.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I know I'm just coming back, but part of the thing that I said to Carol in the email was, I wasn't here when this church was founded, but it is my assumption that the people who donated this money would want us to use it to enjoy this year and thrive together as a small family. So I would, if this is my suggestion, in PTO meetings we motion to approve something. So I would motion that we have a vote to maybe use $100,000 of this endowment, cover the $75,000, and then have a cushion of $25,000 to enjoy this year and come together and celebrate and not have to worry quite as much this year. So I don't know if anyone has any feelings on that or would second that or has a smaller amount, but that is my thought.
So anyone certainly is free to comment on that or make your own comment or question. And those from home, don't hesitate to call, because we're ready to listen to your questions as well, or your comments and your opinions.
Okay.
My question is, what exactly does it mean going into hospice? I'm not familiar with that.
Well, the same way that you would think of hospice for a person, that we would, if we don't do something, the church is going to die, basically. So if we don't, use the money somewhere, wherever that comes from, we have to do something to bring more people in, because that's the issue. We have wonderful people, we have dedicated people, we have generous people, loving people, but we just don't have enough of them. And so either we move forward and make an effort to increase our visibility in the community, our all the things that Lauren has in mind, or we say, well, I guess we're just too small and we're going to close. And churches do that. Churches do that very intentionally. They decide they're going to close. So, yeah, go ahead.
Other options as well. Right now the budget's reflecting the desire to grow children and family ministry. And that's going to be a 2-year commitment is what the empowerment team has decided. And then we might decide, I believe, my suggestion is going to be that we have measurements that we can show that we are using this funding well and that we don't become dependent upon it. So there was going to be goals that the committees are going to need to set. So we don't just keep spiraling down. I think we're going to need to watch that. And if the success that we don't feel that this children and family ministry is successful, maybe we regroup and choose a different type of ministry. So there's that other option too. Or, praise God, the children and ministry program flourishes and becomes so wonderful that then we can focus on adding another type of focus for us. So there are some other options besides hospice, but I do think sometimes churches have a tendency to be in denial, keep doing the same thing over and over again, and it's really sad to see endowment funds just spiral down until there is nothing left for them to pay forward, and create a legacy. So we do need to be mindful of the balance of that.
Right. Well, and those things that you've mentioned are all things that would happen sort of in the future, not a decision that we would make today. Yeah. Yes, Tony. He's running to get you.
Okay. It was what's the $75,000 is what we need? Is that correct? Is that
Yes,
what I'm hearing
yes.
right? That's what we need. And I think we should give Lauren a chance to get the church going again.
I totally agree.
mean, what else do we have to do? What else do we got? Let's give her a chance to get started. Okay?
I'm with you. John, okay.
A question for Steve. What is an actuarial prudent amount of money that we could take out from the endowment fund on an ongoing basis?
Last year we established that could, that's where we came up with about $32,000 of funding when we funded the budget last year, which was around 6%. And at that point, it would not really decrease. And if market conditions were kind, it might continue to increase. But we were assuming a 6%. So, which at $750,000, I calculated the number last night. It was about $45,000 a year. But now that now that the balance has already dropped $20,000 because the market is up and down, on an ad nauseum basis at this point, we don't know where it's going to go. Most likely, it's not going to continue at the current pace of increase. So, whether it's stagnant or goes down is probably one of the two more likely choices. But I think we were using a 6% return from the total valuation as a sort of a baseline. Gary.
Just to clarify that, Steve, I don't think, was that in the actual vote? Last year we voted on going to the endowment fund to fund the deficit.
Correct.
Right. But 6%, 8%, whatever.
We did not establish a fixed percentage.
Correct. Okay, so there is no limitation regarding.
No, there is not. We used that sort of as a baseline of what we could project that would be sustainable.
Right, correct. I just want to clarify that for people. Yeah, and I think what we're doing here really is looking at the individual, tech support, the extra salary for the video stuff or whatever, and Lauren's salary. And I mean, we're looking to approve that. The idea where to get the money from, we voted on last year, and that is the amount from the endowment fund.
Correct.
The deficit.
Right.
That was the vote. So we don't need to discuss, well, I don't want to inhibit discussion, but it's not necessary to re-vote that again to get the money from the endowment fund, is it?
Right. At this point, that's our only option open to us at this point, unless we decide we're going to expand and approve a new committee to come out with some fundraising ideas to raise another $30,000 or $40,000.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay. So the idea of this discussion is to say yay or nay, but yay to Lauren, and yes, we approve the expenditures that are on the budget, and it's understood that the money is going to come from the endowment fund unless someone comes up with another idea.
Yes, our endowment fund is our only source to fund the deficit that we have at this point.
Right.
And you're right, Gary. We did decide that we can use money from the endowment fund to fill in the deficit, which we hadn't done in previous years. However, because this is such a big amount, we did not feel, and like Steve said, there's just a few people on the committee, that we would say, oh yeah, we're going to just $75,000, no problem. So we wanted to bring it to everyone and have everyone hear and even just understand so they know that that's a large amount, more than we had talked about last year, and we just want everyone to know that and feel okay about it. Whether it needs a vote or not, yeah. Well, we always vote to approve the budget, the final budget. So.
It's very appropriate to have that discussion.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
The endowment fund has written into its bylaws that it funds new ministry initiatives, and that's something that is going on here. And I hope that we can keep in mind that the church is here to serve God's purposes in the world. It's not here to get more people to give more money to keep us as an institution going. So I hope that as we move forward, we can keep our eyes on what God calls us to do more than we keep our eyes on staying in existence.
Yes.
Being in existence enables certain things. I'm not suggesting that we're irrelevant, but I think that if we keep our focus on the ministries that we want to do rather than on we need more people so we'll have more giving units, it will shape the way we do our ministry.
Yes, and we definitely are aware of that. We definitely are aware, and Lauren is aware of that. And when we had our discussion with her, we comment on that. And her goal, I mean, she loves this church. She sees this as being a place where, it's a real joy to the neighborhood and the community. And what follows, but since we're talking about money, that's kind of why we're saying that. But we recognize that reaching out, that's why hearing what everybody needs in this neighborhood and being what they need and sharing our love of Christ is the goal. And we do recognize that. Thank you for saying it here, though.
Just with respect to Lauren's motion, I understand what she's saying, but really, the endowment fund is the only place we have to draw money from. That's just the practical side of things. So the cushion is there. There's really no point in taking extra money out. That money should stay because at least there it's earning something. So what we take out should be exactly what we need. That's just my opinion.
Thank you.
Just furthering what Mike said, I agree entirely. And I think that with respect to the budget, I think maybe to move this along, the budget as you've presented is a bare bones budget. So it is the minimum we need in order to be able to further what we believe to be the purpose. The only thing that I think that is unnecessary in the budget, simply because of the manner in which we're funding it, is the capital reserve. I think the idea of capital reserve is a great thing if you're putting money aside, but if we're drawing it from the endowment fund and putting it in an account for a rainy day, it's better to leave it in the endowment fund, take it when we need it if a capital expenditure arises, if we believe that the market is going to move ahead. If we believe the market's going to deteriorate, then maybe we take it out, but that's a decision for somebody that knows more than I do. But I just don't see the utility in creating a capital reserve when you're pulling it from your investments. I understand philosophically perhaps, but I think if we need a capital expenditure, we can always go to the endowment fund for that capital expenditure during the course of the year.
That's a very good point, yes. And I agree with, as a financial person, I agree with that assessment. So if we look at it that way, we would be trying to approve a budget which is currently the $32,000 in the original proposal that came through, plus the $20,000 minus the $9,000 that's in the capital expenditure request. So we're looking at 32 plus 11 plus Lauren. So that would be 43 plus Lauren.
50 something.
So at the risk of being
Gary has a...
My understanding with the capital expenditures is that it's actually supported by anticipated expenditures for the current year. In other words, basically it's part of the budget. We need that money to do certain things. Now, if that's any different than what we used to do, then I agree with Mel.
There is a certain amount that is used on an ongoing basis. We have repairs and maintenance, I believe, of $4,000, but we did not utilize our entire amount in 2021. I think we only spent about $2,400. But there is a capital reserve from last year and from 2020 that currently resides at $12,000, which is what we could spend in 2022 without even having a $9,000 line item or capital expenditures. That would just come out of the reserves that have been unspent for the last 2 years, mainly probably because of COVID and not too much has been moving forward. So
this is the $9,000 does not represent in reality. It doesn't represent specific items that we need to spend.
Perhaps Ted, where's Ted Rasmussen? Is he still here? Could you shed more light on that, Ted? Do you know specifically any items that we will need to spend in 2022 from the capital aspect? His response is we're probably fine at this point. So with the 12, especially if we've got a $12,000 reserve already established. So we could eliminate that $9,000 line item for the current year, yes.
Okay. Oh, Mel?
No, I was going to say, in the interest of trying to move this forward, I would make a motion that we approve the budget without the $9,000 capital reserve line at this particular point, because I think that's really the the thing that needs to be decided. So I would make a motion to do so.
Is there a second to that?
And I just want to clarify that as we have the budget presented, it would also include funding the position for Lauren. So
That is part. I assume that, but that is part of my motion. If we need to make that formally as part of the motion.
okay, there's been a proposal or a motion forwarded in a second.
In a second. All in favor?
All in favor can raise their hands.
Yep, just raise your hand. And if anybody wants to vote through the phone, you're welcome to do that. Okay, that looks good. Anybody opposed? Although that looks
Those
like
who are
a
opposed, please
vast
raise your
majority. Yeah, great. Oh, they would just have to call with the number I gave. Or text, yeah. But it's such a vast majority that unless we get lots of negatives, it's going to pass. Okay, so thank you. Thank you. That's wonderful. Now we can pay our bills. No, just... So we have one more thing to discuss, which is probably much easier. And 6 weeks or so ago, we talked about restructuring the church, the way that we run the church. So now we have consistory, and consistory members are also chair people, as you recall. So our new idea was to have a smaller consistory, and those people would not be chairpersons. And we would have an administrative team of 6 people who would do the day-to-day things. Not meaning that they're here day to day, but the running of the church, including personnel, finance, and property. And let me just tell you that how many times over the last year, questions have come to me and I say, oh, that's something the administrative team will be taking care of. So there's quite a bit. So today, we just need to decide if we've given this some thought from 2 months ago when Mel and Nancy and I presented this to you. And we wanted for everyone to have some time and ask questions if you needed to, and today we're voting on that. So, but first, if anyone has further questions, we'll certainly listen to those. Anne?
I think I have 3 questions. The first is, how is that administrative team chosen? Are they elected by the congregation similarly to the consistory? The second is, what is the filter, if that's the right word, of what goes to consistory, what goes to the full congregation, what goes to the administrative team, what goes to the pastor? And then the third question is, do we have a revised set of bylaws that reflects this new structure that we can see as we move in this direction?
Well, the last question, what we're planning to do is to suspend the bylaws that we have. Rather than write up new bylaws, we're suspending the current ones for a couple reasons. One, this is on a trial basis so that we don't have to make this decision, this is the way we're going to be forever. We're going to try this for 3 years. And then we will write up new bylaws if we decide to continue. And I think even in the 3-year period, we'll learn enough things that probably the bylaws will be written more accurately once we have a feel for it. So the bylaws part was easy to answer. So the first question was, what are the filters to the different? Oh, chosen. Well, one of the things in this new structure is a nominating committee, which would be 3 people, and they would actively be calling people and asking them if they would be interested. Knowing their skills, because it's a small group, people know each other. We would get 3 people that hopefully are interested in being on the nominating committee, that know people and would reach out to them and ask them if they would like to be on that. I mean, we've done a little bit of that already, knowing Ted, is the one that you would come to think of as maybe and I'm not saying that he should do this, put him on the spot. But now I have gone to Ted saying, is this something you'd be interested in, being on the administrative team, being the property specialist? And so, but certainly a person could just say, I would like to be on that. I mean, they can feel, knowing their own skills, would like to be on that. And then, yes, we would vote on them. Right, Bruce? Yes, we would vote on them, like we do for consistory. And the same with consistory. The nominating committee would also go to consistory, but they're certainly welcome. Somebody already asked me if they could be on consistory. Now that we don't have to be a chairperson, that is not a limitation. So anyone who feels the desire to be on consistory can put their name in, and then we would vote on that. So I think, does that answer that question? Okay, and then you said what goes to whom? The consistory is still the decision-making group. Administrative team is not. They'll be making decisions on a day-to-day kind of basis, but not big changing decisions. The consistory is still the decision-making committee. And they will decide. There's some things that we talk about in consistory that the whole congregation doesn't. We're not going to bring that to them every month. So they will make decisions still. But things that we think are going to really affect, and it will be, I think, consistory's decision to say this is something we really need to take to the whole congregation, or this is something that we can. I don't know how we can really, that I, at least standing up here, can delineate that for you. I think they will decide. Like we've done this whole year, we've brought at least 3 different things to the whole congregation because we felt it was big enough and important enough that we wanted everyone's input, not just 6 or 7 people. Restructuring and Lauren's new position and whatever else we've talked about. Small group ministry and things like that. So things that we want everyone to have input on, we'll bring to the congregation. Things that are just sort of procedural but need a decision, they will take care of in consistory. I don't know if that's a good enough answer, but does that satisfy you or no? I don't want to be a politician, that doesn't answer the question.
It strikes me that this administrative group can be a very powerful group. It can also be a very helpful group, greasing the wheels, getting things going.
Well, I see it more as a helpful group because it isn't going to make any decisions, so it won't be powerful.
But it is going to make decisions because it's going to say, sure, let's change trash companies or something. I don't know what they are.
Well, okay, yeah.
It's going to make some decisions. It's also going to say, this is too big for us. It needs to go other places.
Yes.
And so I'm hoping that there is some acknowledged set of decisions that must go to another group, or what's allowed for the property person on that committee to just take care of. Your sense of having helped run the church for a year is this will be great. And I want to endorse that. From the outside, it feels nebulous to me.
Well, I think because it's new, there is going to be that. And I think the people who do agree or choose to be on it are going to be developing with the help of Bruce.
Could I speak to that just one?
Sure.
As a quick aside, anybody who would be in this position would be limited by the budget line items that we've developed as a congregation. So they don't have the ability to outspend what they've been budgeted for the year. So from a financial side, that would be somewhat protected. Anything above and beyond that would have to come back to the congregation.
So they will be figuring it out as they go, because this is not how, we've never had these committees.
Carol.
This committee, yes. Who said that?
Right here.
Oh, Frank.
Yeah. You're saying a three-person nominating committee?
Yes.
Who chooses the nominating committee?
Well, we've talked a little bit about it. Anybody, again, can volunteer to do it if they feel like, hey, I have a good feel of who everyone is in this church, and I would like to have some say in, in who gets asked. Volunteer. I mean, anyone can volunteer to be on that. If not, probably, Libby or I will call a couple people. Or anybody else that has a good idea. There is no, set way to do it. Mel.
Carol, if I may, I think the concept of this is, I think there is the idea that we're going to have to evolve with the administrative team, but I think much of this idea that the administrative team is suddenly a brand new creation is a little misleading. We currently have a finance committee. We currently have a property committee. We currently have individual committees that are doing segmented portions of what this church does. And I think what we're talking about is the administrative team retaining some of that flavor, but coming together and dealing with certain of those things. The largest part of this, as I see it, is kind of moving this from a consistory-based congregation to a congregation-based congregation where we're making more decisions because of the idea that the size of the congregation has decreased, etc. I agree entirely with Ann. If this administrative team is abused, just as if the finance committee today or the property committee today or anybody else is power driven, they could be problems. The administrative team is not a new creation. I think the focus of this is moving more toward getting the congregation on those 4 or 5 or 6 times a year where let's talk about some things that maybe are things being talked about the consistory now, but now you're telling the entire congregation this is what's being done. So I think, and it's an evolving process. I don't think any one of us, we sat for a year in the committee. I can't tell you exactly what's going to be decided by this team or that team or whatever. But what I can tell you is that I think what we're going to do is see this as a quasi-consistory meeting from the standpoint of saying, now we're deciding as a group, as a family, as a congregation, the direction of this congregation or what we want to do. But there is no question that abused, it could be a problem. But today's system, abused, could be a problem. So I think the idea is we believe, or at least I believe, that this moves us more toward an idea that everybody's participating. May not be perfect, and one of the reasons why we're not attaching permanency to it. But I think that's the concept as to what we're focusing on, getting the congregation more involved, getting the consistory moved from the idea that it's making the decisions. And again, is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. But that's where we are. And we're going to be electing the administrative team.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to be electing the consistory, and we're going to be doing this. I think that's the concept. So anyway, I just want to mention that.
Yeah, I think that's all very accurate and hopefully helpful. Yes, our finance committee has very few people, so they make a lot of decisions with just a few people. And the administrative team will be more people doing a variety of jobs. Oh, no.
I'm just saying that the potential is there in that scenario.
Okay, as I look at this, the $39,000 that came out of endowment this last year, how much of that was for the whatever you call it, the stuff that's upstairs now, whatever.
Technology.
Yeah, technology. What percentage of that was for from technology, and are we going to need that in the next year?
Well, there is some in there. There is I forget the amount that's in there for next year.
Okay, but what was
not a large amount, a few $1,000s. Oh, I have it here. 9 for next year. Is that what it is? Oh, well, his salary. Well, but that was for this year. We've already done that. I mean, yes, I mean, Frank's salary, if you're including that in technology, but I mean, I was including that in salary. So just tech equipment, if that's what you mean. We do have a small budget in there for that because, things break, we need new, well, Frank's salary. And then we put out, from the Endowment Fund, we just requested $7,000 to do all this, $7,700 to do this and put that up there and clean all this up and drill holes and so forth. But that was this year. For next year? Well, I don't know that we had as much in for this year because things have changed so dramatically. I mean, I don't remember exactly when Frank was hired, but we didn't have any, in 2020, that was not even a thought. We didn't have a tech budget because we didn't know all this was coming. So we've just been learning and having to buy new things and putting it in for requests for endowment fund. So we're just all figuring this out over the last 2 years. Okay.
Spent roughly $6,600 or $7,000 in 2021.
But don't we have some?
And so on and so forth. But the $7,700 is new spending in 2022. Is that right?
So that doesn't have a set, we don't know what that's going to be spent on. We just put it in there so that if things come up and need to be changed or repaired or upgraded, we have some money in the budget to do that. I don't know.
It's not in the budget, it's a separate request from the endowment.
But I thought we put something in the budget. When we talked in the finance, we should put something in the budget for tech. No, I don't mean services. I mean tech. Oh, so we don't? Okay. I thought we did. Okay. I'm sorry. I thought we did. I thought when we discussed it, maybe we decided not to, but wait a second. Yes, you're right.
We were talking about the structure changing with the consistory and so forth. And we had this conversation when we first got all the papers and we read about and talked about it. And I think I might have said that I wanted to say that we would do it. And with the thoughts behind that, we also said that if we could get the smaller consistory and stuff, there might be more people, new people coming in who would be willing to take the thing. And that there had been a lot of controversy when I was on consistory. How come we always have the same 3 or 4 people making all the decisions? Because nobody else would do it.
Well, because you had to be, I think the reason is you had to be
if it didn't work out, we could always go back and revitalize and do something else.
Yes, because you had to be a chairperson. So if you weren't on a committee, then that kind of closed you off from that. Yes, thank you. So if there are no other questions, Libby?
I have one question about the tentative timeline. So from here, if this is approved, and I'm understanding a nominating committee will be formed. And then, so what is it from the time of this point, if we approve it, from this point until we're ready to bring people before the congregation for a vote for the consistory and the admin team? Can we make a...
Well, I don't have a set time. I mean, we first have to do step one and get a nominating committee, so I guess it depends on how fast we can find that. If we can do that in a week, and then they reach out. So I would think, certainly by sometime in February, we should be able to have.
Would the congregation feel better because if we had a tentative timeline so they would know when we might have names? Would that be helpful? Because I think sometimes timelines to know by March or April we would be ready to start, because right now we're kind of in limbo because we're not nominating consistory members at the annual meeting. So, we're kind of in this limbo period that I think...
Well, I think we could certainly do it before March. I mean, if we just get moving, and if we find people, I mean, if it's a real struggle to find people, then it might take it longer. But I think if we're diligent in reaching out, that we should be able to do this at some time in February. I think, but that's just my opinion. It's not a fact. So I don't know if I can, promise people that. But we can certainly, make that a goal. Yeah, I mean, we don't have the consistory members, people that have dropped off because of their tenure, they're gone. And we did that the same thing for last year, so we only have a few people left on consistory. So...
we've been doing that intentionally, but knowing that the administrative committee might be proposed.
Right.
So
it's... Yeah, I mean, Margie is really off, and she's just being generous to do some notes for us today, or some minutes, I mean. So, we don't want to be pushing this off. We've already, we've waited quite a while, so I think we want to move on it. But I can't promise when it will happen. I don't know. Okay, so if there are no other questions or comments, then I will ask for a motion to approve the restructuring of the church. So Barb makes the motion. Is there a second? Okay. Marty? Oh, that's horrible. This is the worst part about standing up here. Marty seconds it. Okay. Any opposed? No? Okay. So the motion carries. Okay. So that is all that I know of for today. So thank you for coming. Thank you so much for your interest, for your work, for your questions, and your time. And we're adjourned.